Hi, I'm here with author Aanchal Malhotra, who is very well known for writing historical work. Anshul, you've spent years listening to and recording deeply personal memories of the partition. Looking back now, what first drew you to that subject?
That's a great question. I think the fact that I didn't know anything about partition,
Mm-hmm.
even though all four of my grandparents had lived through it, and I think sometimes younger people just don't ask about the past, and I was certainly one of those
Mm-hmm.
people. So I think when I learned how much it impacted my family, I was curious to know more,
Mm-hmm.
and it led me to years of research on the topic.
Right. And what do you think a writer's responsibility is when dealing with history that is not only political but to a great extent painful also?
That's an interesting question. I think for me as a writer, my first responsibility was towards the testimonies that I
Mm-hmm.
recorded. So, very often you would speak to people that had different viewpoints than yours or told completely different histories of the same event. And I think I learned very quickly to stay true to their versions because I was speaking to
Mm-hmm.
them. And maybe your perspective as a historian comes secondary
Mm-hmm.
to their lived experience of the event.
Right. And for you personally, what does it mean to carry other people's memories? Because essentially that's what you're doing. You're
Mm.
documenting other people's memories. And how do you know when you need to keep a distance from them? How do you stop the personal spilling over to them?
That's a good question. I don't think I'm so good at allowing the personal to not spill over because you spend so much time with these people, right?
You're
They're
invested
elderly.
in it,
Yes, of course,
right?
you're
Yeah.
invested emotionally, but physically also. You may spend hours and hours with them, sometimes days. So you do kind of embroider yourself into their lives as well. But I think I feel a grave responsibility to these testimonies,
Hmm.
and I feel it's a real privilege to have heard them.
Right. And how did you choose the people you interviewed? Was it instinct, geography, chance, or just
I think
how?
it was a combination of everything.
Uh huh.
I wanted to interview obviously diverse enough populations for the project to be representative of an event like Partition. I also wanted there to be an equal mix of gender.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to record women's stories as well as men's stories, as well as stories of people who were children at the time of
Right.
partition, those who were a little bit older. So I think it was a combination of things.
I remember reading somewhere it said that you said that speaking to your own family was sometimes harder
Oh,
than
much
interviewing
harder. Yes,
strangers.
yes.
Why do you think silence exists in families?
It's a good
Even in our
question.
own society,
Yes.
that
Of
happens.
course, I find myself relating to Sri Lankan history a lot because even though the events are not similar, the way in which they manifest in
Uh huh.
families and the way in which people protect certain parts of their
Mm-hmm.
life
Yeah.
is similar. Um, I think when you speak to your family, there's a lot of burden of history.
Mm-hmm.
When you know what they went through, your perspective about them
Mm-hmm.
changes, you view their sacrifices differently. And I think sometimes the elder people in our family just don't want to revisit
Mm-hmm.
those painful parts of things that they witnessed, but it's quite important to actually,
That's right.
because
Yeah.
it allows us firstly to be personally invested in that history, even if we haven't lived it. And I think somewhere or the other, it has shaped us as younger people as well.
Yeah.
But I think, speaking to my own grandparents, it took a lot of persuasion to get them to open up.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think when they did, and when they realized how meaningful it was
Mm-hmm.
to me and to my siblings,
Mm-hmm.
it became a lot easier to talk to them regularly.
And would you say it was like a healing experience for them also
I
to
don't
an
know.
extent? Don't know.
I don't know. I can't
Uh-huh.
say. I think that they started to enjoy us spending more time together
Okay.
talking about the past.
Right.
Healing is a very big word, I
Uh-huh.
think. It takes a long time to heal
Mm-hmm.
from something like historical trauma.
Right. So in Sri Lanka, we've lived through a civil war
Yes.
that lasted 3 decades, maybe
Mm-hmm.
more, and there are still so many untold stories from survivors across all the communities.
Correct.
From your experience, how important is it for nations, especially like Sri Lanka, that have endured conflict, to record first-hand accounts before that generation fades
I
away?
think it's imperative.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's imperative and to record them in the voices of the people, in the languages that they speak. I think there's something very intimate also about listening to a person tell their story and see them claiming that story as well. Uh, that's why I say I feel a lot of resonance with the stories of Sri Lanka over the years, because the feeling in which they are preserved is very similar to partition. The pain, the hesitation in discussing certain things, the conflict across region, different communities, ethnicities. I relate to the way in which history has been passed down, often in silence.
Yes.
So I think it's actually gravely important. But I understand the political ramifications of
Also.
saying, recording stories across the board. I understand that, but I do think things like this take time.
Okay, now talking about the Museum of Material Memory, this allows people to upload stories of objects tied to
Correct.
history.
Yes.
Why do you think objects, a utensil, a book, a piece of jewelry, whatever, why do you think sometimes that speaks louder than official records? Before I allow you to answer that, I must tell you, after the war, when I visited Jaffna, I saw lots of people's saris, their suitcases, and I thought to myself, my gosh, those images were so powerful. It just spoke volumes. So
I think you've answered the
I've
question
answered that, but I'd like to
more
hear your
poignantly.
answer.
But this is it, right? I think an object tells us about a certain moment in someone's history. It includes their biography, includes the love with which an object has been used, passed down, maybe created by hand. And I think sometimes verbal language is actually quite difficult to share. We hesitate in sharing our experiences, putting them into words. But I think an object speaks volumes
Yeah.
about the history of a family, perhaps the relationships within a family. So our idea with the museum was to have firstly a digital museum, so that the varied people of South Asia could have a shared space that is
Yeah.
not divided by physical borders. It is accessible to everybody. This was
From
very
whatever part
important.
of the world. Yes.
Yes, of course, from whatever part of the world, but more so for South Asia, where borders continue to be quite fraught between countries.
Yeah.
But you see, an object, I see objects being used here, utensils that I use in my home. And I think that kind of commonality surpasses nationality, religion, ethnicity, and it
Yes.
allows people to connect on a very human level. So if I see a utensil in a Sri Lankan kitchen being used that my mother uses in my kitchen in Delhi, there is immediately a commonality, and I say, oh wait, I already know what this is used for, you know. So I think the object has a way of surpassing all the man-made boundaries we make for one another and allowing people to connect.
Right. So you also transition from non-fiction to fiction with the
Yes.
book of Everlasting Things.
Yes.
Did writing fiction feel like a release of some
Oh
sort,
God, no.
or did it carry an emotional weight for you?
Well, actually, fiction is very difficult. I find it's incredibly hard because I don't think I'm an innately imaginative person. So I think that while fiction is very hard, it's also very fulfilling. So I feel like at the end of the novel, I felt like I had accomplished something incredible because it was a story that had lived in my mind and I had manifested it on paper. Of course, every book is like that, but fiction I found as a medium quite difficult.
Right.
Yeah.
And now let's talk about literary festivals. You're here for the HSBC Ceylon Lit and Art Festival. What does it mean to you personally to attend these festivals? And what do you want readers or attendees to take away from festivals such as this?
So yesterday was my first panel at the festival, and I was blown away by how many young readers there were. How many young people came up with my book and asked me to sign it later. I was pleasantly surprised by the questions that people asked. They were thoughtful, and obviously the population of Sri Lankan readers that comes to this festival is a well-read population, and there were so many people on a weekday. So I was quite excited, and I think I'm even more excited today that it's a weekend to see how many people will come and what the sessions will be like.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for giving us your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the festival.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.